So today on the retro shelf, we're going back to the past with a couple of books that I haven't previously done a video on. So I've taken them down from the shelf to let you have a look, and we start off with Speccy Nation, a tribute to the golden age of British gaming from Dan Whitehead. Includes a foreword by Your Sinclair's Phil South. 30 years ago, a little computer with rubber keys, a handful of coders and a squawking sandbox changed the world. Veteran games journalist and author Dan Whitehead on a journey through 50 games that helped to define the golden age of British gaming, from timeless classics to unlikely cult favourites, and even games so eccentric they could only have come from Britain in the 1980s. So this was self-published by Dan, and we'll have a quick flick through. There's the contents with some familiar names. Forward by Phil South. Crap in a funky Skillo sort of way. Dan's introduction. The classics. So we've got Manic Miner, Jet Set Willy, The Brilliant Jetpack, Attic Attack, Ant Attack by Sandy White, Horace Goes Skiing, Wheelie from Microsphere, Alchemist from Imagine, Chaos from Games Workshop, Everyone's a Wally from Microgen, I played the lot on the 64, Death Chase from Micro Mega, Brilliant Mervyn J. Escort, Head Over Heels from John Rittman and Bernie Drummond, The Pioneers, games that broke the mould. We have School Days, Feud from Bulldog, The Hobbit, All or Nothing, Dark Scepter, Red Hawk from Melbourne House, The Wild Bunch from Firebird, which belatedly got a Commodore 64 version, thanks to Cytronic and John Wells, Deus Ex Machina from Melcratcher, incredible game, Id, also from New Wave and Melcratcher, Slan from Martech, based on the 2000 AD comic, Driller, the first of the Freescape games, allowing you to play in 3D, The Greats, stand the test of time, Where Time Stood Still, isometric game from Denton Designs, Cybernoid from Raf Checo, Nodes of Yesod from Odin, Nighttime from Mastertronic, part of the Magic Knight series from David Jones, Jack the Nipper from Gremlin, we have to be as naughty as possible, Zoids the Battle Begins from Martech, very unusual game and a great tie into the toys, Firefly from Ocean and special effects, Thanatos from Durell with Amazing Dragon, Turbo Spree from Durell, which you could call Grand Theft Auto years before it happened, Daley Thompson's Decathlon, They Stole a Million, where you have to plan a bank robbery, Dark Horses, games that were more interesting than you think, Flunky, you get a job at Buckingham Palace so you can get the royals' autographs, Survival, Agent X, clever multi-part game, amazing sound from Tim Follin, Friday the 13th, very poorly made game, but interesting premise. Jason is attacking the campus and you have to stop him. Alien from Mind Games, Argus Press Software, tie into the original film and very clever atmosphere. Death Wish 3, How to Be a Complete from Virgin, based on Adrian Edmondson's book. Games that would never be made today. Trash Man from New Generation. Pick up the bins, empty them in the lorry. This is Mop from Atlantis. Mad Nurse from Firebird. We have to protect the babies. Death Star Interceptor. Blatant rip-off by System 3. Starring Charlie Chaplin. You have to act out films. Cannibal Island from Liveware Software. The Rocky Horror Show, based on the musical and the film. Very strange. Now, Frankie Goes to Hollywood is a classic. You have to become a complete person. There's a murder mystery. There's objects to use. There's mini games. Incredible game. Give my regards to Broad Street, which is bizarre, based on the Paul McCartney film. You have to reassemble the album. More online reading. And about the author. So then Dan followed up with Volume 2, The Digital Decade, with foreword by Digitizer's Mr. Biffo. Decade of mass entertainment, lazy summer holidays, school discos and biking across town to spend money on sweets, comics and maybe a Spectrum game. So these are more of the games. So foreword, introduction, big screen. Spectrum goes to the movies. Ghostbusters, The Evil Dead, Gremlins, The Never-Ending Story, Back to the Future, Rambo, Blade Runner, which was inspired by the soundtrack rather than officially being a license of the game. The Goonies, clever, with 2 players, or 2 characters to control, and you switch between them. The terrible Highlander. Biggles was a disappointing one. Cobra, great fun on the Spectrum. Aliens, this is the, well, there's 2 versions. There's the US version, which has the digitized stills from the film and various sorts of gameplay, but then there's the better Electric Dreams version in the UK, which is really clever. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Predator, Master of the Universe the movie, Short Circuit, Howard the Duck, which was terrible, Top Gun, Big Trouble in Little China, another bad game, Robocop, which is a massive big bestseller, Platoon from Ocean, brilliantly done, Rambo 3, Jaws, Ghostbusters 2, which, like the game, you can say is not as good as the first one. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Red Heat, The Running Man, Batman the movie based on the Tim Burton blockbuster, Robocop 2, Beverly Hills Cop, Gremlins 2, Back to the Future 2, Back to the Future 3, Predator 2, did enjoy that one, and Robocop 3. So, James Bond. Bond goes 8-bit, View to a Kill, The Living Daylights, Live and Let Die, License to Kill, The Spy Who Loved Me, The Action Pack, and The Unusual Game Octopussy. American TV shows that got video games, so got Blue Thunder, Airwolf, The Dukes of Hazzard, The Fall Guy, which is awful, Miami Vice, nice idea, just didn't work very well. You've got Street Hawk, famously long delayed, Knight Rider, terrible, V, very tricky to get past the first bit, Airwolf 2, The A-Team, unofficial that one, Toys and Cartoons, so Danger Mouse, there's 3 games based on him, Battle of the Planets, The Transformers, that's the Ocean version made by Denton Designs, not the Activision version made by David Crane, Brave Star, Centurions, Challenge of the GoBots, Master of the Universe, that's the adventure game there, Thundercats, which is actually an original game by Gargoyle, but then became the license, Action Force from Virgin, Mask, Mad Balls, very strange tie-in, terrible game, Star Wars Droids based on the cartoon, Count Duckula, The Real Ghostbusters, Defenders of the Earth, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles in the UK, Captain Planet, very late game for the Spectrum, Comic Book Heroes, Strontium Dog, The Killing from 2000 AD, Dan Dare, Pilot of the Future. I do love the Dan Dare games. Rogue Trooper, completed that one. Judge Dredd from Melbourne House was not very good. Nemesis the Warlock, good fun. Slain again. Oink from CRL, based on the comic. Garfield, Big Fat Hairy Deal, there was a second Garfield game. Roy of the Rovers, very strange game. Viz, adults only really, that one. Kids TV, Postman Pat, Super Ted, Terrorhawks, Roland's Rat Race, Super Gran, 2 very poor games there. Orm and Cheap, The Giddy Game Show, The Trapdoor, I love The Trapdoor. Through the Trapdoor wasn't as good, but The Trapdoor was amazing with his big graphics by Don Priestley. Grange Hill, absolutely awful game. Nightmare, I enjoyed Nightmare. Very interesting, very clever. Gilbert Escape from Drill. Postman Pat again. There's 3 games from Alternative based on him. Ed the Duck. Huxley Pig. Super Ted again. Round the Bend. Later republished as Doc Croc's Outrageous Adventures. Thomas the Tank Engine in Friends. Fun but very limited little game that. Bangers and Mash and Fireman Sam. Classic TV game shows. You got Blockbusters, 3-2-1, It's a Knockout, Treasure Hunt, Play Your Cards Right, Bullseye, Krypton Factor, Bob's Full House, Every Second Counts, Run the Gauntlet, Mike Reed's Pop Quiz, and Pop Goes the Speccy, Pop Stars, Chart Hits and Music Games. So you got the Shaky Game from Shakin' Stevens, the Thompson Twins Adventure, which is actually published on a flexi disc, on a magazine, Oral Quest, The Biz, which was by Chris Seavey, the musician behind Frank's Sidebottom. Wham! The Music Box allowed you to make your own music. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, I've already mentioned in the first book. 19 Part 1 Boot Camp, based on the Paul Hardcastle hit in 19. And there was to be a second part where you loaded the recruit from the first game into the second, but that never appeared. Sabrina, the pop star. Speccy Invades Your Lunchbox. Mr. Wimpy. Weetabix versus the Titchies. Action Biker, which is based on Clumsy Colin, the KB Skips character. Whopper Chase, The Muncher, based on Chewits. 8 bits and bobs of 80s culture. So, Warlock of Firetop Mountain, based on the Final Fantasy books. Fighting fantasy books. Eddie Kid Jump Challenge, based on the Stuntman. Hope you like hospital food. Hair Razor, based on the Kit Williams book Masquerade. Rothman's Football Quiz. The Rats, based on the James Herbert novel. Very spooky game, that. Drug Watch from Nottinghamshire Constabulary. Jeff Cape's Strongman, based on Strongman events. The Comic Game, a tie-in to Halley's Comet, which arrived in 1986. Samantha Fox Strip Poker. Cred Breaks Out from the TSB. Now, Super Trolley, someone wrote into Jim or Fix It wanting to play a game, make a game, and it was made. You are in a supermarket, you have to take things to the correct place, price up the cans. Very strange. Then British TV programmes, so we've got Alf Weeder's Own Pet, Minder, Benny Hill's Madcap Chase. You might recognise the style of characters by Don Priestley there. The Tripods, Robin of Sherwood. The Young Ones, interesting idea. You controlled one character and the other 3 moved around and did things on their own. And you had the speech bubbles telling you what was happening. Interesting idea, didn't quite work, but ahead of its time, I feel. Max Headroom, EastEnders. Now, Spitting Image is directly based on the show and had you fighting against the other world leaders. Split Personalities, originally to be called Splitting Image, you had to rearrange the sliding puzzle of celebrities. But the show stopped that one going ahead under that name, so it became Split Personalities rather than Splitting Images. Monty Python's Flying Circus, brave effort from Core Design to put across that, heavily inspired by the Terry Gilliam animations. The Very Strange Neighbours, where you race around Ramsey Street. Doctor Who Dalek Attack, very disappointing because you're shooting lots of stuff and that's one thing the Doctor never does. But what about? There was no Metal Mickey, no Muppets, no Ulysses 31, the Beano, no Busby, no Manimal. There was a C64 Automan. McDonald's didn't get a game back then, or the McDonald Land arrived later on the 64. The Tufty Club, perhaps. Garbage Pail Kids, 66 Butnick. There is a Garbage Pail Kids game nowadays. The adventure game, there was a couple of games on the BBC. Drogner was being one based on that, but would have loved to have seen a computer game based on that. Dempsey and Makepeace, Monster Bunch, Gordon the Gopher. So Dan Whitehead, about the author, by the same author, some of his other books there. So, yeah, so these are still available on Amazon, as far as I'm aware. So Speccy fans, or just generally 8-bit computer fans, well worth a read. You may even discover something you've never played before. So, big thank you to Dan Whitehead. Hope you've enjoyed this Retro Shelf video, and I'll see you in the next one.